Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are once again, and today we are talking about my perspective of the Ward Davis concert, my boy, the Ward Davis. So, first of all, if you don't know who Ward Davis is, I can't sit here and just summarize his life in, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Look him up for yourself. Do yourself the service. Look up a song. If there's one song that I usually recommend to anybody that's listened to him at first, it's probably Good and Drunk's probably the number one that I would recommend. But if you're really into, not necessarily murder ballads, but just deep meaning stuff, Black Cats and Crows and Sound of Change is really good as well. Those two, I would say, are probably up there for me. However, Ward Davis is probably one of those artists that really has inspired me, and I've really grown accustomed to like and learned and just appreciated. And of course, I met him through Cody. Most people say Cody Jinks, if you're looking at and from a drug standpoint, he was the gateway drug for most people that listen to traditional style of music now, the neo-traditional, because he writes with Ward, he writes with Josh Morningstar, he writes with Brian Martin, he writes with Adam Hood, he writes with people like that. So I guess if we're really sitting here talking about Cody Jinks, you really have to talk about Ward Davis because they're pretty much intertwined. They toured together, are friends, and they don't necessarily get to hang out much anymore because, they're all doing their own thing. But it's really cool that when it all started, it used to be just a couple of homies who really loved the music that they were doing, and it's still the same way. It's just they're not able to hang out as much, right? It's like you and your homie that you grew up with, that you really like, your best bro, your blood brother, or whatever. You don't get to talk to him much anymore, and one whole thing of it is, hey, listen here, I don't get to hang out with you, but we're still friends. That's how me and Blake are, which was the guy I got to go to the concert with. So we will talk about his perspective of it on the other side of this. So therefore, put my rein down. Let's talk about it. So first of all, the setting of the concert is in the beautiful mountains of North Kakalaki, North Carolina, at Silverados. Silverados is like a little, I wouldn't say it's like a biker bar or anything. It's like just a little tiny bar. And there's a music venue on the outside of it. And it's beautiful because you can see the mountains. If you walk far enough to the back, you can watch the clouds and stuff. I love the mountains. It's probably the thing that I miss the most about going to Western Carolina when I graduated is I sat there and I'm like, you know what? This is a place I really would love to move to because it's just beautiful up here. There's mountains, there's clouds, it rains a lot. I love the rain. Not necessarily fun skirting around in a two-wheel drive car in the rain, in the mud when you're fishing and stuff, but it's definitely one of those places where you can just sit there and relax. If there's two places I would like to live before I die, it would be the mountains of North Kakalaki, or the mountains anywhere really, or a range somewhere. Something that I can call it my own, not necessarily raise cattle and stuff, but just kind of be out there doing my own thing. Not necessarily being completely off grid, but, just definitely being away from people, because people suck, believe it or not. There's good people out there, but most people suck. So, let's talk about Ward Davis, right? Ward Davis is probably my number 2 artist. I hope if he ever listens to this, he doesn't take any offense to that, because Cody got me into the traditional style of... Let me back up. Well, wait a minute. In the neo-traditional sense, Ward's probably my number 2 artist. Probably in my top 15 for sure, all country artists of all time. Cody's, of course, probably my number 1 in the new traditional style of music. It is always changing depending on my mood and influence and what I've been through in my life. However, Ward's definitely been climbing the ranks as I'm getting older because I relate a lot more to that music. So I will say that Ward is definitely one of those guys where I'm sitting there like I don't know where I would be without that music. And that is one thing that I wanted to make my mission to talk about, is not necessarily in the podcast, but actually to him. And I bought the VIP tickets. So first of all, let me talk about the VIP experience with Ward Davis. Do it. If you get the chance, just do it. Because you really sit there and you learn. You can ask questions. You get to listen to like 3 to 4 acoustic songs unplugged. But you really don't get the general sense of the man up on stage all the time. You can feel it, the genuineness, the authenticity, the personality, the charisma. But when you're in a small setting with 10 to 15 people and you get to sit there and listen to Ward talk about stories and listen to the soul in his voice when it's just him, his guitar, his microphone, that is like magic. It really is. And when you get to meet him, I would say prepare yourself a little bit better than I did, because I could sit here and talk to Ward about how much he means to me, how much it influenced me, how much everything went, what he's done for me in my life. But you know what I can muster? I just said, thank you. I don't know where I would be without your music. That's all I could say. And that is true. And that's probably the best summarization of it. But that's all I could muster. It really was. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't almost shed a tear, because I am a man. I will admit to when I'm about to cry. And I about did, but I held it in and got my picture taken. And we're going to go ahead and sit here and talk about the music set and everything at the end. However, I would like to give first a shout out to the venue of Silverados. Beautiful venue, mountains, clouds, everything that I previously described. The VIP experience, you get the indoor bathroom, which is really cool. And just, it's really an old school feel because you're sitting out there in chairs. You can bring your own chair. And you get to hang out. You get to be with, it's a really small venue, and smaller venues beat bigger venues any day of the week. I preach on that. Anybody that's ever been to a smaller venue, it's very intimate, it's very cool, it's very personable, and there's not much more I can say other than, yes, if you get the chance to go to a smaller venue versus bigger venue, I recommend smaller venue. And the reason that I do this is I went to the Eric Church and Cody Jinks concert in Raleigh, North Carolina, right before the Ward Davis concert, and I went to the 2 back-to-back in Charlotte, Schuyler Center or something like that, at the Credit Union Schuyler Center. It's a really smaller venue compared to the 2, and just the difference. Of course, Cody being the actual show and Eric Church being the show is 2 totally different audiences, and I'm going to talk about that in my little vlog that I'm editing, and that will be on my YouTube channel, which I think it's in the link tree, but I will definitely make sure it gets put in there. If not, I'm going to put a little vlogski up about my experience. And one thing that I will say is it's a whole different crowd. And that's for good and worse. But I don't know, man. It's just one of those things where I'm sitting there, I'm listening to Cody play a Soul Out, and I'm sitting there in the lawn seats, and of course the lawn seats just don't get them. Go ahead and get you some actual seats. Be a real person. I was dumb. I didn't think about it way ahead of time, but I just wanted to listen to him. The lawn seats, man, there's a lot of interesting individuals out there, and I've seen a couple of fights. I've actually seen one dude that, man, this man looked like a boulder, and he shoved this dude that was just talking to his girlfriend. Just shoved him out of the blue. It looked like he got kicked out of the pit or whatever. And he was walking up and he just shoved this guy. I guess he was drunk or whatever. But this one dude and him's about to fight. I'm sitting there beside me. I'm just like, man, I'm just trying to listen to Cody. Like, I'm just trying to concentrate to the music. And then anytime I wanted to take a video, I had this group of 5 to 6 people just screaming the whole entire time. Not even talking about the music or listening to the music. They were more or less just being there, being, I guess, I never sit here and be like, you know what, don't drink or anything. Do whatever you want to, but when it gets to the whole thing of it, you're making the performance about you, and you're not really sitting there appreciating the music that either artist is putting out. Like, even when Eric Church came out, these guys were still annoying, screaming, just partying. And sure, maybe they're just with their ladies or whatever, but I don't know. I like to think that if you pay good money to a concert, that you go and appreciate the music, because that's what you're there for. As Tennessee Jet, just shut up and listen to the music, and that's the PG version. That's what I truly feel like you should be doing when you go to a concert. Don't sit there and be like, no, I ain't going to talk to my friend the whole entire time. No. But just sit there and genuinely appreciate the music. And when you're at Charlotte, when I was in Charlotte, both nights, it was like that. It was like a family atmosphere. Everybody was the hippies and the cowboys. But when it came to the Eric Church and the Cody Jinks crowd, I felt like 1/4 of it was the Cody Jinks crowd, which was really cool. I got to see one dude that was sitting right beside me, or he was actually a couple, but he's sitting there singing hippies and cowboys with me, and I'd look over and look at him, and we would just be kind of jamming out, and it was just a really good time. I really appreciated it, and I really had a good time. But when it came to just everything else, it kind of become an obstruction to the performance. Now, we talk about Ward Davis. There was no distraction. This was I don't know how many people were there. I didn't sit there and be like, you know what, I'm counting how many people were here. But it was just like, you know what, we're all here, we're having a good time. But first, Silverados was beautiful, smaller venue, great time. B, shout out to the merch guy. I believe his name is James. He has an Instagram. So does every single player in the band, the bass, the guitar, the acoustic guitar, I believe, the drummer, Ward himself, and the merch dude, James, the merch dude, the PR man, the guy that took the pictures. They're all fantastic people. My boy Doug's actually related to the bass player Steven. And I got to meet Steven's mom, and Steven's mom's a treasure. Their whole family was genuinely nice. I got to hang out with Doug and Blake and everybody there, so I had a really good time. Got to enjoy company of friends, and I would definitely call Blake and Doug pretty close to family to me. I don't know. It's just one of those things when you've been close to somebody for so long through work or friendship, trials and tribulations, you just learn to really appreciate each other's company, right? So here we go in regards to the set itself. Great set. Couldn't ask for anything better. So the way that Ward works is he's just, man goes after it, right? He's really having a good time, and I honestly can't sit here and describe the style of any artist, because the style of any artist is the best way that you can ever learn it is just listen to their music. Go to their YouTube page, go to their Spotify page, go to the Facebook page, listen to them, and you can actually learn a lot about Ward being on his Facebook page, because he is an absolute hilarious. Like, honestly, if he didn't make it in music, he probably has a pretty good chance of being a comedian, in my opinion. He is hilarious. I love his Facebook page. It really gets me a good laugh when I need it. And there's one thing that I will say about Ward is he really does leave it all on stage. He's not like one of those people like Charles Wesley who goes up there and he's like rocking out, sitting there going after it. But like when it comes to his voice, you can feel the soul. And that's the way I'm talking about getting after it. And I really enjoy his performance. Probably the highlight of the night for me was at the end. Black Cats and Crows is probably my number one Ward Davis song. However, Colorado's probably in my top 3. I view that Ward Davis's Colorado is better than Cody Jinks. And the reason that I like his is it's a lot more slower. It's very beautiful. And he actually got to sing it, which is one of those songs that I've never been to a lot of Ward Davis's shows, but A lot of people say that he doesn't sing that very often, and when he went up there and sang it with the blue lights, and it was just him on the encore, after we sit there, we're like, Ward, 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 Ward. It was beautiful, and I really appreciated it. And that's probably my favorite moment of the concert, and I really enjoyed the whole entire performance. But when it come to me, the VIP experience was everything to me because I got to meet him, shake hands with him, just like Josh Morningstar, talk about how much his music means to me. And that's the one thing that I would recommend if you are meeting an artist. And don't go up to him and be like, yo, I'm your biggest fan. Now, you can do it. Don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of fans out there, and it's hard to say you're the best fan or the greatest fan. But the way that I've always viewed it is the reason that they make music, of course, that's how they survive. It's how they get by. But those songs are essentially being bleeding on the page, and those that blood that's been shed on that page is for us to either deal or listen or understand where they've come from. And the one thing that I've always thought that was the most important thing you could ever say to anybody is, hey man, I don't know where I'd be without your music. I really appreciate everything you've done. That's the most genuine thing that you can ever say that any artist has influenced your life. And that's where I feel like I'm going to end this. I'm going to let Blake talk. So we're going to naturally transition to Blake after this. Swoosh. Yeah, that was not natural at all, but yeah.
Well, what's up, guys? Good to be with you back again on the steel guitar. Cole, always good to be with you, man. Looking forward to getting to talk about my experience with Mr. Ward Davis. What a guy! What a guy! I was pretty impressed. Literally the only literally I don't have anything negative to say about the guy, about my experience. The only bad part was the 4-hour drive both ways. You know, but that was but that's all right because it meant a lot more time with you. But yeah, we started out and got to went through security and all that, and went with this person over around to the merch table, and I was honestly really impressed with the merch guy. Wouldn't you agree, Cole?
Absolutely. I believe his name is James. James Pierce, maybe. Very insightful, very funny. Me and him were actually wearing the same t-shirts. We're basically best friends, right? And
yeah.
I pleasant experience with him. He's a genuine nice guy. He actually threw an extra sticker in with my purchase when I bought this hat, which you can't see, but it's a nice retro trucker hat that Ward's been advertising on his Facebook page, and a shirt. A really cool guy, and just a genuine nice person.
Yeah, he seemed really legit. And then after we talked with him, got our free T-shirts that were only really only available through the VIP experience. Did want to do a public thank you for those tickets for my birthday, by the way. Appreciate you. A lot of fun. Definitely, you should be friends with Cole. Lots of great lots of great fun things you'll be able to do. But yeah, then we walked in the place with Silverados and got to meet him, and he did a little like an acoustic song set for us. He did let's see what it was. It Good and Drunk. What was a couple of other songs?
Well, there was 3.
Yeah. It was.
Good.
I know there was Good Drunk. I can't remember the other 2.
One's called Day One, which is him talking about him quitting drinking day one.
That's right, because he kind of gave what was really cool. He gave the backstory about how alcohol had really how a lot of really getting drunk a lot, and how his addiction with alcoholism had really started to really kind of tear up his life a little bit. So getting to hear him talk about that was pretty cool. Can't quite remember off the top. They were all great. They were fantastic. I'm still a new Ward Davis fan, so I'm still trying to figure out all the song titles.
for me, it was like almost being like mesmerized because it's the venue itself is small, but the VIP experience was like 10 to 15 people, and it was very intimate. And I was just kind of in the moment. So I remember day one. I think that was the last one. He did Good and Drunk first, and then the middle song was the one where I'm sitting here and like I'm trying to remember what it was.
Yeah, I can't quite remember, but anyway, he another fun part too is he did a like a small Q&A, and he was a pretty down to earth guy. He's like, hey, I'm not interesting, but if y'all want to know anything about me, I guess here's your chance. So that was really fun because I asked him a question. Nobody else seemed like they were asking questions. I'm like, hey, I'll throw my hat in there, and asked him what kind of singers really inspired him to get into country music, and definitely big on like some of the outlaws, what I consider some of the patriarchs of the outlaw country. And then obviously like Garth Brooks. He said the dance really made his passion for music and for country music go way up. But he seemed to be a real big Waylon Jennings fan too. So I'm like, well, much respect there, because who doesn't love him if you're a real country music fan? So that's pretty fun. And then one thing that really stuck out to me was honestly when we were getting a picture with him, and you kind of talked about how his music had influenced your life for the better. And he seemed kind of taken aback by that. It's almost like he didn't really expect to hear something like that. So that was really cool to get to see you interact with him and get to see his reaction, to know that his music is, helping some people out, doing some encouragement. And then the show starts. They have this one guy come up, and he did all right. He was just kind of like it was just one guy up there just doing some songs, trying to make a name for himself. Then the John Cox band gets up there, and they did pretty well. They didn't really have any original stuff, but they just played a lot of well-known country songs. I know they played Cody Jinks. What was that? It's right on the tip of my tongue. I know they played some Dwight Yoakam, and then they did Cody Jinks, and they what was that song? It was the name of it's right on the tip of my tongue here. It was a song about the last part's like say a prayer for me and I'll see you on down the line.
That's Cody Jinks. That's Cast No Stones.
Yeah, Cast No Stones. That's right. Yeah, they did that, and that crowd went wild when he did that. You can tell Cody Jinks was beloved. He really was loved among that crowd. So did some of his songs, and I didn't hate them. I thought they did all right. I would like to hear some original stuff they have if they have it. I think there's some strengths in like when a band like that plays some real well known songs, but I'm like, I want to hear something that you wrote. So that was my only kind of qualm with the John Cox band. But then when Ward gets out there, they were ecstatic for him. And I was kind of really impressed with the place too, with how they had everything set up. Real not really sophisticated much, pretty basic and simple venue. So I encourage people to go there if you ever get a chance. And then Ward gets up there and he rocks it. No other way of putting it. He just rocks it. And like I say, he really does a lot of stuff. You can tell he's a real down to earth guy, and really has a passion for his fans, and that's something that I appreciate too. And definitely gave a great shout out to all of his band members, and I could tell that they just it didn't seem so much like a band, but it seemed like a family up there, and that was something that I I really took away too. And Ward ended with had a lot of great songs throughout. He played him um and Cody Jinks song "I'm Not the Devil." If I'm not mistaken, that might have been the first song or one of the first.
Let's see. I think I was in the middle of the set.
Yeah,
it was definitely one that everybody went crazy over. First song he sang was "Bad Apple," if you remember right. I was like, I wouldn't expect it to be played because it's a newer song and I like it. Don't get me wrong, but it's not necessarily one of the most popular songs of his sets. But he started out with it.
Yeah, I honestly thought that was a great song to start out with because it's very upbeat, very very good song to get the crowd energized. And I thought the set that he did was great. I mean, everything seemed like a good logical progression of the songs that he did, like back to back to back, and got to talk in the middle of some, and then talk about, hey, here's why I want to sing this. And I thought he put on a dang good show. I was really impressed. I mean, especially for the first time ever really hearing much of his music. I mean, I'd definitely go back, and I'd encourage really anybody listening, if you've never really dove into anything about Ward Davis, dive into it. He's got a lot of good music. So I'm definitely a new fan for sure.
All right. So what was if you're sitting here, I know you probably would say "I'm Not the Devil" because you know that song. But I know you also said you liked it when you played it on the piano on the YouTube version of it. But in the grand scheme of the whole entire set, what was the one song that you either liked or stood out to you the most?
Probably Black Cats and Crows. Yeah, that one really stood out to me. He did a fantastic job with that, and I think that was his last song that he did. And it's, from everything that I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm still kind of new to him, but it seems like that's one of his signature songs. And yeah, I mean, it would be kind of like Kenny Chesney waiting until the end to play like "She Thinks My Tractor's Sexy" or something. That's like the equivalent of like a Ward Davis doing that song. So it was, overall, man, I really enjoyed it. And I think getting to meet him too made the experience overall like a lot better, because it's one thing to go and listen to a guy do some music, which is great, but getting to meet him and to get to hear a little bit of backstory about his life, I think that makes it a lot easier to like the guy, because you kind of understand where his music's coming from then.
The Black Cats and Crows is actually the title track on the album, the latest album that he released. Hopefully we'll have a new one coming up. He, of course, released the Sunday Morning EP, which has a hymn or two in it, and it has Day One, and then the song about his friend that committed suicide, written from that perspective of the friend, which is really deep. If you ever had somebody that's ever done that in your life, I would recommend going and listen to that. But yeah, I had a really good time. The guy that opened the show, the first guy, his name was Jason Whitaker. I remember that. I always want to shout out to those people. I mean, they have a job to do. They have to set up the show. And he was really into like the slower stuff at first. There's a whole bunch of original songs. And then the John Cox band, they played a whole bunch of covers. Some Dwight Yoakam, some Waylon, some people like that. And that really set up Ward really well, because it got the crowd really rocking up to it, because Ward's music's a lot of up tempo. It really is.
Yeah, he and that's I think, yeah, I mean, when he does a lot of his up tempo songs, there's some artists where they do really good at the upbeat, like good tempo songs, and some do really well like with the slower songs, like Thomas Rhett. I think his slower songs are good, but really I couldn't tell much of a difference a lot of times in whether I like the up tempo songs with Ward more or the slower songs. To be honest with you, that was that was something too. I couldn't really tell much of a distinction on which one I like more. So something else I love for sure, just because music all around seemed really cool, no matter if it was a slow song or a upbeat song.
Sure. I will say one of the highlights personally for me was when he played Colorado, which was the song
Yeah.
right after they did the encore, and he just come out on stage. The bass player Steven, I believe Goose was the guitar player's name. I think his actual name is Josh, but they called him Goose.
Yeah, they called him Goose.
And then Mike, the drummer in the back, they all just kind of faded out of view in the darkness, the back of the stage, and just let Ward come up there. And he sang Colorado, which famously has been sung by Cody first, but I actually probably enjoy Ward's version a little bit more because it's a lot slower, especially if you listen to the album version of it. It has a fiddle behind it or a little violin. It's very peaceful. And that's the song that Ward actually wrote. So that song.
I actually like after going to a Cody Jinks concert, then going to Ward, I actually like Ward's version of I'm Not the Devil better. Knowing his background a little bit more, it makes a little bit more sense just because I know about his background some now, Yeah.
And that's what I always talk about, songwriting being so important. Ward basically has bled himself onto the page. He's been through a divorce. He talked about that in the meeting, the VIP meeting, where he talked about how he come home and all his stuff was in the front yard and stuff like that. He also included a fun little story about how he punched a record producer right in the freaking nose. That's pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet that record producer didn't ask any more dumb questions or say anything dumb after that.
And Ward claims that it's his biggest hit of all time.
Yeah, because about broke his jaw.
Yeah, so and that kind of blackballed Ward in regards to the whole Music Row industry too. So I mean, it didn't do him a service, but I think that he's really paved his own way and his own crowd and his own community in regards to his music. So I think it's actually turned out better for him personally.
Yeah, I wish, and I know you and I were talking a little bit about this on the way back, but I really wish that these guys could get on the radio, because I really think that there's a hunger and a thirst for more traditional sounding country music. And I really think they would do fantastic if they could get on the airwaves. Me personally, I would love to hear them, because I think there's a lot of people who just simply don't know about these artists. And if they could find a way to get on there, I think that would do them a huge favor,
Mm-hmm. Well, that to that point, I don't know if you've heard about the whole Oliver Anthony guy that's really blown up here lately.
The who?
Oliver Anthony. He actually just did a what was it? I guess a gig, if you want to call it, in the beach of North Carolina near the farmers market.
Yeah.
He's blown up. He's actually #1 overall on Apple Music.
Oh, really?
He did a song. It's essentially a song kind of saying he lives in Farmville, Virginia, so it's really close to Richmond. And he's pretty much talking about how the rich people in Richmond are kind of stomping on the working man. So kind of like Travis Tritt vibes, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So he's actually blown up here lately, and he's really good. And he's #1 overall, over Luke Combs' Fast Car. There's more downloads of this song than anything.
Right.
And
well, man, if he's hanging with Luke Combs and Fast Car, he must be pretty doggone popular.
And I'm saying, man, this guy screams genuine, absolutely genuine country music. I would recommend listening to him. I'll send you a link. He's just getting started too. Maybe not musically, because I looked at his Spotify and he has a whole bunch of stuff released as singles, but he's really gotten big and he's really good. So I'll send you his link. But it really shows that there are people out there that are craving this older style of country music. And it could genuinely make a revival, kind of like the Outsiders revival tour of Eric Church has been doing. It could be a thing. It's really starting to become more of a norm. So.
Right. And I think, I mean, like I said, there's a huge, huge demand for it. Because like you've got a crowd that likes the newer country, and they're doing just fine because they're on the airways. But I'm thinking like for these artists who do lean more traditional, man, I would just love to see like a Cody Jinks and a Ward Davis be able to get on that, because I think that would just make their music even more well known. Because like for example, honestly, I would have never heard about Ward Davis if it weren't for you. And a lot of these other guys that I know is because I've heard them on the radio, heard them on Spotify, whatever. But and don't get me wrong, word of mouth is the best advertising. But when you can put your stuff out for the masses to hear, I just wish they could find a way to do that. And I know that that's a lot easier said than done. But man, I just wish that not just for me, but for the rest of the fan base of country music, I wish they could find a way to get some of these guys out there, because you've got these younger guys like a Ward, who's I think in his 40s, who, I mean, they've still got 20 years probably left in them to do some music, and you could have a lot of guys lead kind of like that revival of because I think really if Ward could go mainstream, he'd be right on up there with the Cody Johnsons and the Luke Combs and the Chris Stapletons. I really believe that.
I agree with that, because there's just a certain genuineness about somebody, like when they're doing their music, you can actually tell it's them, right?
Yeah.
And he screams that.
Yeah, he really does. He really does, because it's definitely some personal stuff in his music, which I think adds even more credibility for a singer.
So one song that I told Blake that he could not listen to before we went, because I was trying to give him, like, I'm not going to sit here and let him listen to every single song on the album, but there was one that I'm like, you can't listen to it. You got to hear it live first, and then I want your perspective afterwards. And it's called Sounds of Chains. And, this song is, I would say, if you're a theology major or something like that, you might find some holes in this central story.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wanted Blake to listen to it so he could give his preaching on the soapbox here for a good few minutes about how he disliked or liked this song. So
yeah, I'm pulling up the lyrics now. And yeah, and that's and I might have gotten into a little bit on the last podcast. I try to make a big distinction in entertainment versus like the personal beliefs. Now with now obviously I think my personal beliefs affects how I have an outlook on life, and like when it comes to whether a song really works this way or not, but really I think the line that you were really kind of asking me about was the one that more like he says here's the chorus now. Wake up to the sound of chains. Some days I may go borderline insane, but I found God in my prison cell, and for her and him, it's just another day in hell. So, it's going to depend now whether, like, if you commit the murder first, I really think, I mean, obviously, I think you can find God afterwards, right?
But you can find him for sure.
Yeah, if you find him, then that probably shouldn't cause you to commit a murder. You see, so the way that I took the song was was that he found God, but then committed the murder. But the more and more that I look at it, it looks like he was in prison for the murder and then found God. So I didn't want to make a huge judgment based on it, on just the first time hearing it, because I'm like, I want to, try to give it the benefit of the doubt and go back. But entertainment wise, good song, but theologically, all right, theologically, here's my expertise.
Nerd.
Yeah, if you found God, I probably wouldn't try to advertise that. Be proud that they're in hell because of you. That's just that's my 2 cents on that. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's weird. I just
Yeah.
I like the song because of the progression of the sound of chains, talking about being in the prison cell, and then when he dies, he hears the sounds of chains when he wakes up. Because if you remember the last of the second verse, he's talking about how he barely felt the needle at all, so he's being injected, and is talking about how he's praying to God his soul to keep as he dies, and then he wakes up and he's in hell with them.
Yeah.
I like the natural transition of the sound of chains in the first and second from going to prison to being in prison in regards to, hell at the end, because I think the way that I protect in the song is he found God in his prison cell.
Right.
So that is either you can actually find God, like people say they find God all the time, and then they continue to live whatever life that they're doing. Like they're not changing themselves.
Right.
And then you got people that actually change themselves for the good. I find it the way that I interpret the song, and this is all opinionated because this is a song we're talking about. This is
right.
Is for funsies.
Yeah.
But I interpret it that he quote unquote found God by reading the Bible, and he's reading like the part of being like, oh, the good part, like, oh, I'm going to be redeemed, da 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 da. But his heart, which is the true nature in Christianity, I would say your heart, where your heart is where you're at. If your heart is not actually with God and you're just saying you found God and your heart's actually like, I killed those people, they're going to be in hell while I'm up there, shooting whiskey with Jesus, you know what I'm saying? But that's how I interpret it. And I think
and because like you got the part where he finds God, but then he wakes up in hell. Let me just be clear. If you find God, you will not wake up in hell. That is and that's great news, because if you found God, that means that you have been saved because the work that Jesus Christ has done through his life, death, his resurrection for you. And through his life, you can have eternal life. That's not in hell, but in heaven. And he'll also, give you a change of heart, and will desire to see other people go to heaven alongside with you. And once that gift is given to you, it can't be taken away. And so that's why, like I said, fun song, theologically not accurate. Fun, but that's but on the other hand too, I try to tell people, all the time, I get where people can come from if they're not Christians. So like I see the progression and what the song's thinking, but theologically I don't think it's very accurate. But it's fun to talk about with that kind of stuff, because you get to really show an avenue of how people can come to God and know that they won't wake up in hell. It'll actually be just a passageway to an even better life.
And I think it just has a different perspective. It really does, because my opinion on the matter might be different than Blake's. I mean, my difference is they didn't actually really find God. I think they say they found God, but they actually didn't. Their heart wasn't in finding God, so
Right.
That's why they ended up waking up in hell.
And I don't think people get to heaven because of good works by any stretch of the imagination, but good works are a result of the work that Christ has done in you. And, Jesus even says you'll know them by their fruits.
Yep.
So I can sit here and say, I'm a children's pastor, but if I go out and I'm drinking every single night to the point of drunkenness and I start beating my fiance and stuff like that, there's a lot of issues with that. You would really question, is he really all he says he is? Is he really, if that's the kind of life that Jesus gives, I don't want that. So I think that's where a lot of the distinctions come in. Is like, I don't think people get to heaven by good works, but good works are going to be a result of what's been done inside of you with your with heart change.
All right. Well, we got about 5 minutes. So, Blake, just kind of summarize everything in 5 minutes or less. Just kind of talk about overall everything, your experience at Silverados and everything, and we'll conclude the podcast.
Silverado, when we first walked up in there, I thought, oh, this looks like a couple rednecks wanted a music venue. And dadgum if it wasn't. I mean, I walk up, they don't serve food. They hire a dadgum food truck to come out. And I'm like, praise God, this is amazing. Now obviously they sell the the drinks that they have, and they'll sell some of that, and obviously you got the merch out there, but it was it just seemed like a more kind of sophisticated backyard amphitheater is probably the best way that I could describe it for the listener. You can bring a lawn chair, but they also provide chairs out there too. I'm looking forward to going back to see them. I really encourage, if you're a fan of traditional sounding country music, which I really assume if you're listening to this podcast you are. That's just a wild guess, but I believe that would be an accurate assumption. I would really recommend listening to a couple of Ward Davis songs, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. I really don't. He has a good product for his audience for sure. And as a new person in the listening to some of the more modern guys in this kind of music, man, I appreciate you, Cole, introducing me to some of these, because life gets busy, and I'm not somebody who has a huge deep passion. Everything I'm going to revolve around is music, but when somebody introduces me to somebody and I really start to like them, I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to try to play some of their songs while I'm riding in the car and whatnot. So I appreciate you introducing me to these folks, because it seems like, listen, people, if you are looking for somebody who can tell you about good country artists, Cole Lane is your country music encyclopedia right here. So that's who you need to go to. You're listening to the right guy.
Well, I appreciate that endorsement. So, you the man. We're going to conclude this. Of course, this has been Of the Steel Guitar with Cole and Mr. Blake,
Right.
Pastor Blake. I appreciate him being on. Of course, always plug the link tree, always in the description. Send me an email. Let me know how I'm doing. Please, feedback would be eternally grateful.
Let him know how he's doing.
Yeah, if I suck, let me know I suck. That's all I care about.
He's got thick skin, folks.
I don't know if you hear my skin, but it's thick for sure.
Very thick.
Yeah, girthy.
One thing that I've been trying to, I'm gonna screw with Blake here. I have a minute to screw with Blake. Essentially, that I've been trying to get this motherfricker to buy a shirt forever. But dude, honestly, what's your opinion on the merch? I have a minute 30 seconds left. You better be quick.
The merch, you definitely need to get it, and I say that as an encouragement to somebody who needs to get it, because it's good, it's very good looking, it's cheap. You can wear it to concerts and you fit right in, and it's some really good merch. I'm trying to save up for a wedding next year, so I've been kind of frugal, but I've got some money in the budget of the steel guitar merch. I'll make that. I should make that a line item. It deserves. It deserves that.
Especially the hat. The hat looks killer, especially with the side logo. That
yeah.
So great. Oh my.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Maybe for your 100th episode or something, you should do like 10% off or something.
I'll give away merch for my 100th episode if I make it that far.
Hey, you know what? Maybe I can be the recipient of that 100 episode. I'm in it for the long haul.
You haven't listened to one episode barely.
Yes, I have.
Oh man. All right, Blake. I appreciate you being on, my dude. You take care of yourself, and we'll try to keep country music alive. All right.
That's right.
All right, man. I'll see you.
All right. Peace out.
Peace.